She didn't just reject you, she dismantled you. Piece by piece, she took apart the man you presented to her and found him wanting. It wasn't a sudden event, it was a slow, methodical erasure. You thought you were building a connection, showing your interest, being the good guy who communicates. But what you were actually doing was handing her the blueprints to your own emotional demolition. She didn't leave you, she exposed you. The raw, desperate need beneath the surface was laid bare, and she recoiled not from you, but from the weakness you so eagerly displayed. You were too available, too responsive, too willing to rearrange your world for a flicker of her attention. You made her the center of your gravity, and in doing so, you lost your own. Remember that moment? The phone in your hand felt like a dead weight. You had sent that last message hours ago. A simple question, an attempt to reconnect, to pull her back into your orbit. You see the red receipt, a digital tombstone. The silence on her end wasn't just silence. It was a judgment. It was a verdict delivered with absolute indifference. In that moment, the power dynamic wasn't just shifted, it was annihilated. You were no longer a potential partner, a man of mystery, or even an equal. You were a task in her inbox, an unread notification to be swiped away. Every second that ticked by was another twist of the knife, a confirmation of your new position in the hierarchy. Irrelevant. You checked your phone again, and again. The compulsion was a physical sickness. You drafted replies in your head, each one more pathetic than the last. Maybe she's busy? Maybe something happened? You constructed 1,000 convenient lies to shield yourself from the brutal, simple truth. Her interest had expired because you had given it all away for free. You bottomless well of attention, and she had drunk her fill. Before you spiral back into that memory, understand this. Your defeat was not a failure of character, but a failure of strategy. You played a game without knowing the rules, and she, consciously or not, was a master. If this feeling of powerlessness is familiar, if the cold sting of being discarded resonates in your soul, then this is your moment of awakening. This is where the victim dies and the strategist is born. Subscribe now to Psychological Dominion. Turn on all notifications and like this video. In the comments below, I want you to declare your battleground. Tell me the city you're watching from, and share the one experience of being emotionally outplayed that you will never forget. Let the world know where you're starting your ascent from. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, a man who understood the mechanics of human will better than almost anyone, observed that all suffering stems from desire. To want something is to exist in a state of deficiency. Your mistake was not in desiring her, but in making that desire your entire identity. You broadcasted your need, your emptiness, and expected her to fill it. This is the fundamental error of the modern man. He believes that to win a woman's affection, he must pour his own into her, demonstrating his value through constant availability and emotional vulnerability. He is wrong. You are not rewarded for your emotional investment. You are judged by it. High-value man's attention is a scarce resource. It is earned, not given. Yours was a fire hose of validation, and it drowned any spark of attraction she might have felt. She didn't want a supplicant. She wanted a challenge. She wanted a man whose world was so vast, so compelling, that she would have to fight for a place in it. Instead, you offered her the throne to an empty kingdom. Think back to the conversations. You were the one asking the questions, driving the interaction, always seeking to keep the connection alive. You were the one double texting, sending a follow-up when the first was met with silence. You were the one who was always free, always available, ready to drop everything at a moment's notice. Each of these actions, which you believed were signs of your genuine interest, were actually signals of your low status. You were performing for her approval. In the cold calculus of human attraction, the performer is always of lower value than the judge. She became your judge, and you willingly placed your self-worth in her hands, waiting for her to validate it. Schopenhauer would have called this the complete abdication of your own will. You subordinated your existence to the will of another, making her whims the source of your happiness or misery. This is the very definition of slavery. You were not in a courtship. You were in bondage to your own need for her approval. The cool detachment she showed you in the end wasn't cruelty. It was the natural response to a man who had already surrendered. She wasn't rejecting a king. She was dismissing a court jester whose act had grown tiresome. The power wasn't taken from you. You handed it over, gift-wrapped in your own desperation. But what if this humiliation, this crushing defeat, was not an ending? What if it was the necessary catalyst for a radical transformation? What if the pain of her indifference could be forged into an unbreakable weapon? The principles of power are written in the language of loss. True strength is not built in moments of triumph, but in the ashes of utter devastation. You have now experienced the lowest point of interpersonal leverage. You have felt the chilling emptiness of being powerless. This is not a curse. It is a gift. Because only a man who has been completely dismantled can rebuild himself from the ground up, not as he was, but as he chooses to be. The question is no longer why she left you. The question is, what are you going to become in her absence? Will you remain the ghost at her feast, forever haunted by her memory? Or will you use this silence, this void she created, as the ultimate canvas upon which to construct a new reality? A reality where you are the sole architect of your own value. A reality where your approval is the only one that matters? This is the path we are about to walk. The journey from emotional supplicant to a master of self-possession. The process of turning your greatest weakness into your most magnetic and dangerous strength. The art of making them regret the day they ever thought they could afford to lose you. Let's dissect the anatomy of your defeat. It did not begin with her final message, or the lack of one. It began long before, in a series of small, almost imperceptible surrenders. Your loss of authority was not a singular event. It was a campaign of self-sabotage, executed with the precision of a man desperate for an approval he should have been granting himself. This is the cold diagnosis of your fall from power. A fall that happens not with a bang, but in the silent spaces between text messages, hesitation before you speak, in the quiet compromises you make with your own soul. The first phase of your weakness was emotional consent. You believed that to connect with her, you had to open the gates to your inner world completely. You mistook vulnerability for strength. You laid bare your insecurities, your hopes, your anxieties, believing this raw honesty would be rewarded with intimacy. Instead, it was recorded as a weakness. Remember that conversation where you disagreed on a minor point, something trivial, and you felt that flicker of tension? Instead of holding your ground, of letting the disagreement exist as a sign of two distinct individuals, you capitulated. You said, "You know what? You're right." Not because you were convinced, but because you feared the friction. You chose comfort over respect. She tested your frame. You yielded. She won. In that moment, you taught her that your convictions were negotiable, that her approval was more valuable to you than your own integrity. Arthur Schopenhauer would argue that you willingly subordinated your own will, the very essence of your being, to hers. You became a reflection of her desires, rather than a force of your own. This emotional generosity wasn't seen as a gift, it was seen as a lack of substance. You gave away pieces of yourself for free, and as with anything given freely, their value plummeted to zero. From this foundation of concession, the next stage bloomed, the relentless search for validation. Your actions ceased to be for yourself and became a performance for an audience of one. The gym workout wasn't just for your health, it was for the picture you might post, hoping she would see it. The good morning text was not a simple greeting. It was a probe, an attempt to gauge her mood, her interest level, her emotional temperature. You became a slave to the notification. Her quick reply was a hit of dopamine. Her silence was a plunge into withdrawal. You were no longer living your life. You were curating it for her consumption, desperately waiting for her to like it. This is the antithesis of power. A man of substance moves through the world driven by his own purpose. His actions are the result of his own will. Your actions became bids for her attention. You outsourced your self-esteem, making her the sole arbiter of your emotional state. This dependency is a prison of your own making. She didn't have to dominate you. You handed her the chains. Every time you checked to see if she'd viewed your story, every time you reread your last message wondering if it was clever enough, you were tightening those chains yourself. He tested your independence, and you failed by showing her she was the center of your orbit. You demonstrated through 1,000 tiny actions that your world stopped turning if she wasn't paying attention to it. Why would a woman desire a man whose entire existence is a monument to her? She doesn't want to be worshipped. She wants to be challenged by an equal, a man whose life is so compelling that she has to fight for a place within it. You didn't offer her a challenge. You offered her a fan club. This dependency inevitably leads to the total loss of emotional control. Inner state became a direct reflection of her behavior. A warm text from her, and you were soaring. A delayed one-word response, and your day was ruined, your focus shattered. You gave a single person the remote control to your emotions. This is the most dangerous position a man can be in. Schopenhauer wrote extensively on the suffering that arises from unchecked desire, from a will that attaches itself to external outcomes. You didn't just attach your will to her, you fused it. Her whims became your reality. Think of the time she canceled plans at the last minute. A man in command of his reality would have simply said, "All right, another time," and proceeded to have an excellent evening on his own, perhaps not even contacting her until a day or two later. His world does not crumble because one component is temporarily unavailable, but you likely spent the evening agonizing. You relayed every recent interaction, searching for the mistake you must have made. You were consumed by a problem that may not have even existed, all because you had no alternative source of fulfillment. You had no mission, no purpose so great that the presence or absence of one person was merely a detail, not the main event. Her silence is dominance, not distraction. It's a tool, whether used consciously or not, to gauge your stability. When she pulls away and you crumble, you confirm her suspicion. You are not a rock, but a sandcastle, ready to be washed away by the first tide of her indifference. When you asked, "Are you mad at me?" you didn't just ask a question. You begged for her to restore your inner peace. You admitted that she, and she alone, had the power to do so. And this leads to the most catastrophic failure of all: breaking the silence. In the chess game of human interaction, the person who can tolerate silence the longest holds the power. When she pulls back, when the communication fades, it is a test. It is a fundamental test of your self-possession. The needy man cannot bear the void. Silence is a deafening roar in his ears, a confirmation of his deepest fear, that he is being forgotten, that he is irrelevant. So he acts. He sends the follow-up text, the "just checking in," the "haven't heard from you in a while, hope everything is okay." These messages, disguised as care, are screams of desperation. You are not checking on her. You are checking on your own validation. You are seeking reassurance. You are showing her that her absence has created a vacuum in your life that you are powerless to fill on your own. You revealed that her attention is like oxygen, and you are suffocating without it. The moment you sent that double text, you lost. The game was over. You showed her you were more invested, that you cared more, that you needed her more than she needed you. This is the point of no return. When you apologized for something you didn't even do, just to get a response, you signed your unconditional surrender. You communicated in the clearest possible terms that you would rather be a doormat in her world than a king in your own. Nobody is coming to save you from this. This pattern of self-destruction is a solitary journey to the bottom. If you have ever felt that cold dread in your stomach as you wait for a reply, if you've ever typed and deleted a dozen messages, trying to find the perfect words to pull her back in, then you understand this war. It's a silent, brutal conflict fought within your own mind. To win, you must first recognize every battle you've already lost. You are ready to stop surrendering and start commanding. Then subscribe to Psychological Dominion right now. Activate all notifications so you are never unarmed, and give this video a like to signal your commitment to this new path. And now, I want you to answer this in the comments, and be brutally honest with yourself. What is the one harmless action you've taken, like checking her social media or sending a thinking of you text, that you now realize was a desperate plea for validation, a complete surrender of your power? Let the world see your moment of realization. Let's address the lies you tell yourself. You might be thinking, but I'm just being a good guy. I'm being open, communicative, and honest. This is the most pervasive lie sold to modern men. You are confusing strategic disclosure with emotional dumping. You wouldn't show a rival poker player your entire hand before the betting even starts. So why would you reveal your entire emotional inventory to a woman who has not yet earned that level of trust? Honesty without leverage is not virtue, it is suicide. She doesn't want a good guy in the way you've been taught. The term has become synonymous with predictable, unchallenging, and safe. She doesn't want a pet that performs tricks for her approval. She wants a wolf. She wants a man whose power and self-containment are so profound that she feels a primal urge to earn his respect, to be a part of his dangerous and compelling world. Your goodness was compliance. Your availability was a lack of a mission. Another objection. But isn't this all just manipulative game playing? Let me be clear. You are already in a game. You have been playing it since the moment you met her. The difference is, you've been playing with no knowledge of the rules, while she has been responding to your moves based on instinct honed over millennia. This is not about becoming a manipulative monster. This is about understanding the unspoken language of power, desire, and respect that governs all human interaction. It is about ceasing to be a pawn and becoming a player. The fall is not visible. It doesn't happen in a loud argument. It happens in the silent moments. It happens in the yes you say when you mean no. It happens in the apology you offer for having an opinion. It happens in the text you send because you can't stand the quiet. She tested you, and you failed. But this failure is not a life sentence. It is your curriculum. It is the data you need to build a new operating system, one based not on neediness and validation seeking, but on absolute, unshakable self-possession. The pain of this rejection is the fire in which a new man is forged. The question is no longer why she left. The question is, who will you become in the silence she left behind? There's no going back for the weak man. There is only the construction of the new. Let that sentence burn itself into your mind. The man she discarded, the man who waited for a text, the man whose emotional state was a puppet on her string. That man is dead. You will not mourn him. You will not try to revive him. You will treat his memory as a case study in failure, a monument to what happens when a man abdicates his. Reconstruction is not an emotional journey of healing. It is a cold, tactical operation. It is the methodical assembly of a weapon. Your new prime directives, your commands for this war of reconstruction, are simple and absolute. First, cut the excess. Second, install the silence. Third, control the reaction. These are not suggestions. They are the new laws of your existence. Cutting the excess means a complete and total amputation. You will sever every tie, every digital thread, every lingering hope. You will not block her, for blocking is a loud emotional reaction. It screams, "You affect me." Instead, you will simply cease to exist in her world. You will mute her stories, her posts, her entire digital footprint. Your phone will become a tool for your mission, not a shrine to her memory. You will delete the photos, the old conversations, not out of anger, but out of a profound and chilling indifference. They are irrelevant data from a failed campaign. This is not about forgetting, it is about choosing not to remember. You are clearing the battlefield of your mind, removing the clutter of sentimentality so you can see the strategic landscape clearly. Every moment you spend thinking about her is a moment stolen from building the man she will one day be terrified to have lost. Next, you will install the silence. This is your most powerful weapon, and the one you are most afraid to use. Her entire power over you was built on your inability to tolerate the void she created. You rushed to fill every silence with your words, your attention, your need. Now you will become the source of that void. The protocol is absolute. When she inevitably sends that probe, the "Hey, how are you?" text, the "Saw this and thought of you" message, you will do nothing. Your lack of response is not a strategy. It is a statement of your new reality. It communicates, without a single word, that her access to you has been revoked. She is no longer on the list. Her attempt to ping your emotional server will be met with a dead signal. In that moment of her confusion, as she stares at her screen, wondering why the man who once answered in seconds has now become a black hole, the power dynamic begins to invert. She is now the one in the state of deficiency, the one wanting a reaction. Arthur Schopenhauer argued that the will is a blind, striving force, constantly seeking satisfaction. Your desperate need for her response was your will enslaved. By consciously choosing silence, by mastering the screaming impulse to reply, you are demonstrating the ultimate form of power, dominion over your own will. You are no longer a slave to the desire for her validation. You are proving that your peace is generated internally, and her input is no longer required. Do not reconquer. Replace with a sharper silence. This silence is not passive. It is the backdrop for the most important phase, the relentless and total focus on building your own hierarchy. Your value as a man is a composite score of your physical presence, your financial power, your social leverage, and your symbolic capital, your status and skills. This is your new obsession. The hours you once spent checking your phone will now be spent in the gym, forging a physique that communicates discipline and power before you even speak. The emotional energy you wasted deciphering her messages will be funneled into your career, your business, your investments, building a financial fortress that makes you independent of anyone's favor. The time you spent waiting for her to be free will be invested in building a network of high-value men, learning new skills, reading, and pursuing a mission that is so compelling, so all-consuming, that the drama of courtship becomes a trivial distraction. This is not for her. Let me be clear. If you do any of this with the secret hope that she will see your transformation and come running back, you have already failed. You are still the performer seeking the judge's approval. You must do this for the sheer, brutal joy of becoming formidable. You must build an empire of self so vast and so magnificent that her memory becomes a forgotten village in its shadow. A man who wants to be loved will be discarded. A man who imposes his presence will be feared. And fear, in this context, is a far more potent form of respect and attraction than the fleeting affection you once begged for. This is not a hope. This is a plan. The transformation is a sequence of tactical decisions executed with cold precision. You are not getting over her. You are becoming someone she was never qualified to have in the first place. Your interactions, if they are ever to happen again, will be minimal and unpredictable. You are no longer the reliable source of validation. You are the scarce resource. You are the one who is busy. You are the one whose time must be earned. You are the one who ends the conversation first. You will be an absence that carries weight, not a presence that begs. You are building a man whose approval is the prize, whose attention is the trophy. The ultimate victory in this campaign is not winning her back. It is reaching a state of such profound self-possession and power that if she were to stand before you and offer you everything you once dreamed of, you would be able to look at her with complete neutrality and say, "No, thank you," because her validation has become utterly worthless to you. That is freedom. That is dominion. You are ready to stop being a casualty and start being a commander? Then subscribe to Psychological Dominion, turn on all notifications so you are never caught off guard, and like this video to signal your first step in this new war. Now, answer this in the comments below, and let your declaration be a contract with yourself. What is the one single distraction, a person, a habit, or a memory, that you will cut from your life, starting today, to make room for your new mission? Let the world witness your resolve. And so, the moment arrives. Not with a crash of thunder, but with the silent vibration of a phone against a hard surface. It is her name on the screen. A name that once had the power to stop your heart, to hijack your entire nervous system. It is a message. Perhaps a simple, "Hey," or a question about your well-being, a ghost from a past you have systematically buried. The old you, the man built of need and hollow hope, would have seen this as a miracle. His hands would tremble, his mind would race, crafting a dozen perfect replies. He would have seen this as a second chance, a door creaking open. But you are not him. You look at the name, and you feel nothing. Not anger, not joy, not even curiosity. You feel the cold, clean peace of a general surveying a battlefield long after the war has been won. You see the message not as an invitation, but as a probe. A reconnaissance mission sent from her world to test the defenses of yours. She is checking if the old puppet still dances when she pulls the strings. Arthur Schopenhauer taught that the will is a restless, insatiable force, and that to be ruled by it is to be in a perpetual state of suffering. Your old life was a monument to this truth. Your will was attached to her every whim. Her attention was its food, her silence its starvation. The man you are now understands this principle, not as philosophy, but as a law of physics. You have detached your will from her. You have reattached it to your mission, to your body, to the empire you are building within yourself. Her message is a test of this detachment. To reply eagerly is to prove that the chains, however loosened, are still there. To reply with anger is to prove that the wound, however scarred, still aches. To not reply at all, or to reply with such profound, casual indifference that it communicates a complete lack of emotional investment. This is the final, brutal move of a master. This is the demonstration of a will that has been tamed, sharpened, and turned into a tool of your own dominion. You do not play her game. You simply acknowledge that she is no longer a player in yours. The board has been flipped, but you are not there to see it. You have left the game entirely. You might reply 12 hours later, or 2 days later, with something utterly forgettable. Hope you're well. A simple, polite closing of a door she tried to reopen. It contains no questions, no hooks, no invitation for further contact. It is the social equivalent of a period at the end of a sentence. It is final. It is a statement of absolute closure, delivered without malice, but with the chilling finality of a locked vault. In that moment, she will feel the full, crushing weight of your absence. The man who once flooded her with attention has become a desert. The validation she took for granted is now a resource she cannot access. She will be consumed by the questions you are no longer asking. What changed? Who is he now? What did I miss? She will construct a narrative in her own mind, a narrative where you have become something more, something powerful, something unattainable. And she will be right, but you will not be there to confirm it. Her intrigue, her regret, her dawning realization of her miscalculation, it is all irrelevant noise happening in a world you no longer inhabit. This is the nature of true revenge. It is not an act you commit, it is a state you achieve. It is becoming so thoroughly engrossed in your own ascent that the person who wronged you becomes a footnote in your story, a forgotten catalyst for your transformation. Your legacy is not the pain you inflict back upon her, but the empire you build upon the ground where you once fell. Respect is not given to those who ask for it, or even to those who demand it. It is a silent, involuntary reaction to demonstrated power. You impose respect with your absence, with your discipline, with the cold, hard evidence that your world is so complete, so compelling, that her presence or absence is of no consequence. You did not rebuild yourself for her. You rebuilt yourself on top of her memory, using the rubble of your humiliation as the foundation for a fortress. A fortress she will never be granted entry to, not because you hate her, but because you have forgotten you even built a wall. The silence you now command is not empty. It is filled with the sound of your own progress. It is the clank of weights in the gym, the rustle of pages in a book, the quiet hum of a mind focused on its purpose. You did not learn to live without her. You learned that you were never truly living with her. You were merely existing in her orbit, a satellite pulled by her gravity. You have since become your own star, with your own gravitational field, and lesser bodies are now pulled into your wake. The ultimate power is not making her want you back. It is reaching a point where her wanting you is a matter of complete and utter indifference. If you have finally understood that your value is not determined by an external judge but is forged in the fires of your own will, then seal your commitment now. Subscribe to Psychological Dominion. Activate all notifications to arm yourself for the wars to come. And like this video as a declaration that the old you is dead. And in the comments below, answer this one. Final question. Now that you understand that your indifference is your ultimate weapon, what is the one single memory you will permanently erase from your emotional landscape? Not out of pain, but out of a pure, strategic choice to become free? The day she realizes the magnitude of the man she discarded is the day you will not even notice she is gone.